Hi, both. Thanks for joining us today on our Business Gurus channel, where we will be discussing key business topics to help students grasp the most important elements of their course in preparation for their exams and future career. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we were exploring probably the single most common word in business, profit.
Yeah, gets thrown around constantly.
Exactly. And, if you ask most people, they'll say it's just the money left over after you pay the bills.
Which, conceptually isn't wrong.
Right. But our research stack here, it details that the actual formula behind that idea, that's where all the real strategy comes in. So we're diving past that simple definition today. We want to look at how the sources quantify success, and maybe more importantly, the immediate strategic decisions a business owner faces, like the second they actually see that profit.
Okay.
We're not trying to define good or bad profit here, just nail down the mechanics, the sort of rigorous thinking needed for a sustainable business. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the two big pieces that define everything.
Well, the sources are very clear on the basic definition. Profit is simply the numerical result when you subtract total costs from total revenue.
Okay, revenue minus costs.
Right. If that number is positive, hey, that's profit.
Yeah.
If it's negative, well, that's a loss.
Simple enough on the surface.
But for you, listening, the real insight, I think, comes from understanding how those two totals, revenue and costs, are actually built. Because that construction, it dictates your operational strategy.
That's the key, isn't it? The equation itself, profit equals total revenue minus total costs. It looks straightforward.
P equals TRTC.
Yeah, but if we break it down, like you said, each side of that equation has its own hidden complexity. Let's start with total revenue, often called sales revenue.
Exactly. Total revenue, or TR. It's usually let's say, the easier part of the equation to figure out.
Okay.
It tells us the total money coming in from sales.
Yeah.
And you calculate it by taking the price, P, of whatever you're selling,
Right.
and multiplying it by the quantity Q of units you actually sold. So TR equals PQ. It's basically the immediate cash your operations generate.
Got it. So if I'm selling, say, fancy coffee mugs at $15 a pop,
Yeah.
my total revenue is $15,000.
Yeah.
Simple enough. But here's where the critical thinking really kicks in,
Yeah.
On the cost side, our research really hammers this point. Not all money going out is the same. Lumping costs together just obscures things.
That's absolutely right. Total costs, TC, they're fundamentally split into two different categories. And how you manage that split, that really determines things like your pricing power, your scalability.
Okay, so what are these two types?
Total costs are the sum of total fixed costs, TFC, and total variable costs, TVC.
TC and TVC. Got it.
Maybe we can use that coffee mug example.
Excellent idea.
Yeah.
Let's imagine we've got a little boutique shop selling these mugs.
Yeah.
Where do we see fixed costs showing up?
Okay, so fixed costs, TFC, these are the costs that do not change with how many mugs you make or sell, at least not in the short run.
Like rent.
Exactly. Whether you sell 0 mugs this month or 1,000, you still have to pay the lease on the shop, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the annual insurance premium or the salary for your one-store manager. Those costs are, well, fixed.
So that predictability of fixed costs, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, can it?
How so?
Well, they're predictable, which is good for planning, but they're also this heavy weight if your sales suddenly drop low.
Precisely. And this is a strategic point the sources really highlight. Fixed costs create something called operational leverage.
Operational leverage.
Yeah. Once you've sold enough mugs to cover those big static costs, once you're past your break-even point, every new dollar of sales starts contributing a much larger chunk to your actual profit.
Because the fixed costs are already paid for.
Exactly. But that leverage, it only really helps after you've dealt with the second type of cost.
Okay, the costs that do change. The ones that go up and down based on how many mugs we actually sell day to day.
Those are your variable costs, TVC. If you decide to sell, say, 100 mugs, you need the materials for 100 mugs, the clay, the glaze, you need 100 boxes maybe for shipping them, and you need the direct labor hours it takes to make those specific 100 mugs.
Right. And if I sell 500 mugs next month?
That variable cost line, it goes up probably about 5 times as much. It scales directly with your output.
So if I'm reading the source material right, the simple idea of profit kind of hides this crucial relationship between your revenue and your variable costs. That relationship might be even more critical day to day than the final profit number itself.
It often is, yeah, because that relationship defines something called your contribution margin. This is a really powerful insight from the documents we looked at.
Contribution margin. Okay, what is that exactly?
It's what's left over after you subtract your total variable costs from your total revenue. So TR minus TVC.
Okay.
This margin, this amount per unit sold, essentially, is the money generated by your sales that's actually available to help cover those big fixed costs we talked about, the rent, the salaries.
I see. So if your contribution margin per mug is too low.
You could sell thousands of them and still never make enough to cover your rent. You'll just be digging a deeper hole with every sale.
Wow. Okay, so the full formula, P, PQ, TFC plus TVC, it's really saying something profound about your business model's viability, isn't it? Not just looking back at history.
Exactly. It shows the tension between the costs you can maybe tweak quickly, the variable ones, and the costs that lock you in, the fixed ones.
It formalizes the whole challenge.
It really does.
Okay, now let's make that crucial pivot. Once the business owner does the math, uses that formula, and P is positive, great, they've made a profit. The rules kind of change then, don't they? The analysis sort of stops, and the what do we do with this money question starts. This feels like the ultimate strategic moment, and the text gives a really clear fork in the road here.
Yeah, the shift from calculation to, well, entrepreneurship is why this whole topic is so fundamental. Once that surplus cash actually exists, the owner basically has two high-level choices, according to the documents.
Choice one.
Option one is the straightforward, immediate reward. Keep it. The owner can draw the profit out, pay themselves, pay dividends to shareholders. Use that capital for personal reasons or just hold on to it outside the business. It's the reward for the risk and effort already put in.
Right, this sort of immediate personal win.
Okay.
But the second option, that's the one that really fuels growth, maybe leads to much bigger profits down the line.
That's the second strategic option. Invest it back into the business. This is the aggressive growth path. Instead of taking the immediate cash, the owner sacrifices that liquidity now for, hopefully, a bigger long-term strategic advantage.
Okay, and our research detailed specific ways this reinvestment usually happens.
Yes, it breaks it down into three common strategies. The first is to invest in developing entirely new products. This is the innovation route.
So back to our coffee shop. If the mugs are selling well,
You might use that profit to design, I don't know, a new line of high-tech self-heating travel tumblers or something.
right, expand the product line. But that seems like a high-risk bet, doesn't it? You're basically gambling this profit you just made on the hope that people will want this new thing.
You absolutely are. The risk can be huge. You might sink a whole quarter's profit into R&D for a product that just flops.
Yeah.
But the potential upside, you could access a completely new market segment, maybe one much bigger than your original mug market. It could totally change the scale of your PQ equation.
Okay, so that's the innovation bet.
Yeah.
What about just doing better with what's already working?
That leads straight to the second reinvestment option, launching a big marketing campaign.
Huh?
If your current coffee mug is already a hit, you don't necessarily need a new product. You just need more people to know about the great product you already have.
So you pour the profit into ads, social media, maybe better online visibility.
Exactly. Or improving distribution, getting it into more stores. This is usually seen as a lower risk investment than full-on new product R&D.
Why lower risk?
Because you're pushing a product you already know sells into a market you already understand generally. The main goal here is simple. Dramatically increase the quantity sold in your total revenue formula.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You're amplifying your existing success. Okay, and the final investment choice mentioned. It was about expanding your territory.
The third choice is to sell to new markets. This means expanding your reach, either geographically or demographically.
So, taking our successful coffee mug.
And trying to sell it maybe in a different country, or perhaps shifting from selling directly to consumers online to trying a wholesale model targeting retail chains.
Okay, this sounds like it involves potentially big logistical investments, maybe new warehouses, dealing with different regulations, new shipping.
Oh, definitely. It can be complex and costly. You might need new staff, maybe even a second production facility eventually. But the key difference from option one is you're usually relying on a product formula you already know works.
So the product itself isn't the main gamble.
Right. The risk shifts more towards the cultural adaptation, the cost of actually entering that new market, the operational hurdles. It's an external growth play. The source material frames it as a calculated risk, often less volatile than inventing something totally new from scratch, but potentially more expensive and slower than just running a bigger marketing campaign where you already are.
So what this all really means for, say, our coffee shop owner, that simple profit number on the P&L statement, it's actually the starting gun for a pretty high-stakes strategy discussion.
Absolutely.
The choice boils down to take the money now or reinvest it for the future using one of these three specific paths: innovation, amplification, or expansion.
Sure.
Making that decision is the real operational test, isn't it?
It really is. That's where management earns its keep.
Okay, so we've had a real deep dive today into the nitty-gritty of profit. We've defined sales revenue, total costs, broken down those costs into fixed and variable.
Highlighted that crucial contribution margin concept.
Right. And we've seen the full formula: PE equal PQ, TFC plus TVC. And crucially, looked at the three main ways our sources suggest reinvesting any profit you make.
And if we just sort of pull back to the bigger picture for a second, this whole discussion really revolves around that core tension, doesn't it?
What tension between?
Between taking the short-term personal benefit, drawing the profit out, versus pursuing that long-term, hopefully compounding growth you get from reinvestment. It's the classic entrepreneur's dilemma. Which brings up maybe an interesting question for you to think about after this. Considering the specific risks we talked about for each reinvestment option, the R&D risk for new products, the market saturation risk for marketing, the complex logistics for entering new markets, which of those three strategic investments, new products, more marketing, or new markets, do you think puts the most pressure on your existing fixed costs as you try to scale up? Think about how each choice might force you into bigger, maybe less flexible structural commitments. Is that the ultimate test of long-term viability when deciding where to put your profits?
Thanks to both of you for joining us today. You've been listening to the Business Gurus. Let's now hand it over to you. What further questions do you have based on what we've discussed so far? Leave a comment and we'll get back to you right away. If you haven't already, hit that follow for more business tips.